Thanks. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Foxborough's Board of Selectmen August 21st, 2012 meeting. I'll go over the agenda briefly. At 7 o'clock, we have citizens' input, followed by chairman's update of some upcoming meetings and events. At 7:15, we'll have a public hearing on the transfer of the all-alcohol restaurant license from Piccadilly to Grand Slam Restaurant Concepts, doing business as Jake and Joe's at 25 Foxborough Boulevard. As part of that public hearing, there's an application for a common victuallers license for Jake and Joe's, and a notification of a hearing to be held at the ABCC on the end of this month, August 30th, regarding the Piccadilly pub. At 7:30, Joan Gallivan's coming in to present us with a check regarding the Charles James Fox Memorial Monument and Charitable Fund that was set up quite a few years ago. At 7:45, the Police Chief O'Leary and Bill Caspera will be discussing the recent parking bylaw discussion that recently went through the Attorney General's office. At 8 o'clock, we'll be discussing the license conditions for Christina's Fireside Grill at 2 Washington Street briefly. At 8:10, hopefully we'll be finalizing the goals and objectives that we've set up over the last couple months for the town manager and the Board of Selectmen. And then we'll be going into executive session for negotiations with union and non-union personnel. So at this time, if we could have maybe Linda lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item is citizens' input, and if there's anyone that wants to speak on any topic, if you could just, for the record, introduce yourself. And for those new people, we are on cable access, so if you could speak into the microphone clearly, you will be picked up on camera as well.
My name's Nancy Campany. I live at Messenger Avenue. What I wanted to talk about relates to the parking bylaw, and I don't know whether you want me to speak now. I wasn't sure whether or not we would get an opportunity to speak during the actual session, and you can decide about that. I'm here because I'm one of the members. I was selected as kind of as a spokesperson of the citizens group committee that was initiated by the chief and by Bill Caspera. Okay. And so you can tell me whether you want to hear me now or whether I'm going to get a chance to speak later.
Yeah, why don't we do this, if you don't mind? Can you stick around till 7:45? Because I know you were involved in the meetings, and it's probably beneficial if you hear what their presentation is, the conditions set forth with the Attorney General, and then we'll certainly open it up to the public.
Okay, great.
And just so, before we get to that point, as I've said from the beginning on this bylaw, I have a perceived conflict or a conflict of interest because I live in that area, so I'll recuse myself, and during the discussions, Mark will take over. So, anyone else for citizens' input? Okay, hearing none out there. I wanted to give a couple quick updates under the chairman's update. The first topic regards the State Ethics Commission, and I think over the past few weeks the town has heard from several board members, one selectman and one planning board member, stating in public and filing with the town clerk a disclosure statement. And I am also required to read the following disclosure statement in conformance with the State Ethics Commission, which is under Section 23B3, which, quote, prohibits a public employee, which as a volunteer selectman I am considered employee, from causing a reasonable person knowing all the facts to conclude that anyone can improperly influence or unduly enjoy this person's favor in the performance of their official duty. This section's purpose is to deal with the appearance of impropriety, and in particular the appearances that public officials have given people preferential treatment. As many know, I had a local nonprofit organization called Turfs Up that solicits donations in the form of money and services to build a community feel for Foxborough. As this is a community outreach effort, this organization has received donations in the form of money and services from many businesses and residents in town. All of these services and donations are publicly detailed for everyone to see since the very first day that we set up that organization. The craft organization has made donations over the past several years in the form of grants, tickets to offer as raffles, and the use of their facility for one sport event that we had to raise money. I filed a disclosure statement in the past. I've done it again recently, as well as publicly put this topic on the Board of Selectmen's agenda immediately when I was elected, for the sole purpose of disclosing to the town and the board, as well as to ask anyone if they had objections. I'm doing this again today to be in conformance with the state regulations as they require me to do so. So I appreciate your time to listen to that. There's a bunch of meetings that the selectmen have coming up over the next week, and I think they're all important meetings that have to do with the town, so I'm just going to list in the order. Tomorrow night, we have a continuation of the craft and the town discussion group meeting. It's a continuation of the past several meetings, and it's at 6 p.m., Linda?
Yep.
At this meeting room, the Andrew Gaylord Selectmen's meeting room. Regarding the planning board and the selectmen, there's a joint meeting coming up the following day, Thursday. As part of the process of developing the town's master plan, Sharon Wasson and the planning board, along with their consultant group, Kathy McCabe, will be holding a workshop to discuss the town's future and the impact of sewage on it. The planning board invited this board to attend the meeting and participate, and that's tomorrow at 7:30, again in this room. We've also been asked to attend a school walkthrough, which is the following Monday, August 27th, by Superintendent Debbie Spinelli, to review the recent improvements to the high school that had just been completed. So that's at the High School Media Center at 6:30 on Monday. Invencis, if you remember, we've been going back and forth with Invencis. They've submitted a final, what they call a Class C1 RAO, which is a response action outcome to the Mass DEP with respect to the Neponset Reservoir. If you're interested in seeing that document, it's at the Boyden Library, and the document serves as their proposal on how they intend to proceed in dealing with the contamination in the Neponset Reservoir over the next 5 years. It's an important topic to the town. The NRRC, if you're familiar with them, is a citizens organization called the Neponset Reservoir Reclamation Committee, and their goal of the NRCC is to improve the environmental conditions of the Neponset Reservoir, or reclaim it back to their former function and beauty. So they've invited the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Health, the Water Department, and the Concom to an informal public meeting, and that's on August 29th. It's going to be hosted by Invencis, and it's at 7 o'clock at the Ahern Middle School. That's it for the updates. So we'll go into the first public hearing, which is at 7:15. So we're going to go into some action items first.
Yeah, because obviously you can't start
Yep.
that. Mr. Chairman, Ron Young's here from Lafayette House. I promised him that if we could get him on early, then he didn't have to wait around, because it could get pretty late. Thank you.
Yep.
Ron has an increase for 15 commercial parking spaces in his lot at the restaurant, and, Ron, are you here? I know he was here. There he is. Not very complicated, pretty straightforward, but if the board has any questions, Ron's here to answer them for you.
Okay. You guys have that in the action item. And it looks like there's a request for 15 additional spaces at 23 Pine Street. Sure, yeah.
It's all 109 Washington Street. My permit's 109 Washington Street.
Okay.
I just listed so you could reference where the spots were.
Gotcha. Okay.
My land runs all the way back.
So where it shows the 15 additional spaces,
They're right there.
and it says pre-existing use approved, but are those spaces, or that area cleared for those?
Yeah.
Right now? Oh, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not clearing anything. I'm not doing anything.
Okay.
Right now, if there's a, event at the restaurant, we might park employee cars there.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
I move that we approve the request for the 15 additional commercial parking spaces at 109 Washington Street.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the application? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, 0. For the record, 5-0, Mr. Tape Recorder.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Minutes.
Right, we have July 24th meeting minutes, and I think all of us were present at that meeting.
I didn't have anything on it. I move that we approve the minutes from July 24th.
Okay. Motion made to approve. Seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Ginny. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Is Joan Gallivan here?
I haven't seen her.
No.
I'm going to ask, once we open up the Piccadilly discussions, I'm going to recuse myself from that as well, but if Joan does show up, she's leaving, she has another meeting, she's going to come here, and then she has to go back again, so if we could just stop that.
Yeah, you can
as a
interrupt the
courtesy.
hearing, sure. Yep.
Okay, so you're on 3, Jimmy?
Get an easement request too for,
Yep. Mass Electric requested a perpetual right of easement to grant them the right to install, construct, and reconstruct, repair, replace, add, maintain, and operate underground. And this is that drive going up through Forge Park to the water treatment plant. So in our packet, there's a the written document as well as a map. And I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the perpetual right and easement grant to Mass Electric for all the stated purposes on a parcel of land situated on Cannon Forge Drive.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Lorraine, seconded by Linda. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Slide that over a little bit. Two more minutes.
you're too fast tonight.
Anyone want to discuss anything in the information packet? Quite a few things in there. We are invited to the anniversary celebration for the Canoe River Aquifer Advisory on the 25th. I'm sorry, on September 14th. Somebody wants to go to that?
I want to announce the cut moratorium on,
Yep, that's a good thing. Roger Hill had submitted on behalf of the DPW a notice that there's going to be street repaving and there's going to be a moratorium on cutting into the roads. It's a section of Cocasset Street and on Green Street on 106. And I just, when is that scheduled to be?
It's in operation right now.
That's
They
what I
grind
thought,
it down
106.
right now, so it's being paved this week, I would imagine, so it's already over. Unless you do it tonight. So,
Well, we do have a policy. This
5-year
was,
moratorium.
it's a 5-year moratorium, but I believe this was advertised in the newspaper, and it was routed around, so this shouldn't be a surprise, even though it's being read after the fact here.
all right, 30 seconds and counting. I can't remember the last time we had to wait for a public hearing, in the last year and a half. It's,
I can take up some quick time if you...
yeah, just set up, John, and we'll be all set to go.
I'm putting on my housing authority hat for a second. We've been informed by
If you could just, we know you, but if you
John
could...
Mitchell Moore,
Yep.
Chairman of the Housing Authority. We've been informed by Jay Barrows and Jim Timmerly that the legislation that they proposed to authorize the Department of Capital Planning to deed the property on Walnut Street and 140 to the Housing Authority has been approved.
And that's the area across from the farm stand?
Right,
Yep.
exactly. It's the first in a number of steps, but it's certainly is an important step. The capital planning now has to do an appraisal according to their legislation, and we have been promised from Mass Housing Partnership that they will give us funding to do some preliminary engineering, some perimeter work,
Yep.
perimeter survey, percolation tests, and a wetlands flagging. So
So the state will carry those?
No, that's
For
not
you?
the state. This is a mass housing partnership, which is a
Okay.
private, semi-private, nonprofit. They arrange funding for using, and they were going to, they have agreed to fund at least a portion of those.
Preliminary stuff. Great.
So it's a long way from happening, but it's, at least we did the first step.
That's great. And I know you've been working on that for a long time. Great. It's
Congratulations.
good news. That goes towards affordable, all affordable?
Yes, it would all be
Okay. Any idea what that does to Foxborough's numbers from the?
It would depend on how many we can get. That's why we have to do the engineering. We
Yeah.
really don't have any concept of really how much land is there. I mean, it
Yeah.
says 16.82 acres on the assessor's maps. But my experience with those orphan lots that were created by the takings, that they're, either right on or they're way off.
Yeah.
So we don't even know that. We don't know whether, it's pretty clear we couldn't get sewer in there. As you drive by going up 95, there's a wall of ledge there, so,
Yep.
my experience, I'm sure your experience is that indicates that you probably don't have great percolation in there, so we just don't know how many.
In this town, it's ledge or perfect percolation, John. It's one or the
It's
other.
either, yes, yeah, so we don't know, but
Great.
we'd have to do some feasibility studies to, not only
get to that
engineering,
point.
but then financing feasibility, see if it works.
Good. Well, best of luck. Thank you, John. All right, so being 7:15, as I've done in the past, I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion. I do not have a conflict with the applicant, but I have worked for the property owner in the past. So I'm going to recuse myself, and Mark's going to take over the hearing at this point.
Okay, Lorraine, could you read the public notice, please?
The Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, August 21st, 2012, at 7:15 p.m. in the Town Hall to discuss the application for transfer of license of all alcohol restaurant license from Piccadilly Disposition LLC to Grand Slam Restaurant Concepts Foxborough LLC, doing business as Jake and Joe's at 25 Foxborough Boulevard. Manager Gerard D. Fruggiero.
Thank you. Could all interested parties please come forward? John? Have a seat right here, please. And so you could speak for the record a little louder than usual because Pauline's not here tonight. We've got to go on the recorder and let everybody know.
I think I've heard speaking from up here, is that okay?
That's fantastic. Joan Galvin is here. May I interrupt for 1 minute, please?
Sure.
Joan, could you come
May
forward,
interrupt
please?
me.
Because I know you have another meeting. Jimmy's going to come back for 1 second. We held a spot for you, so.
Hi there.
Hi, Joan.
Thank you.
I spoke to Joan earlier, and she's coming from a meeting and has to go back, and where she's volunteering to come in and present us something with very nice. I figured we'd give you the courtesy to
Thank you.
accommodate. So, Joan, we have the letter. I can certainly read it, but if you want to kind of summarize or make a presentation, that would be helpful.
If you didn't read all the way through it, I'll kind of give you a little background here. What I've done is I called your CFO, your
Randy.
Chief Financial Officer, Randy Scollins, because I have this fund and we have the monument that is sort of like in limbo for a while, and the intentions of having it be in a prominent place in town and has not really been decided. So I decided that after all this time I should do something. So I had a brainstorm here. We have a large fund that was collected a long time ago. My husband, Vincent Gallivan, I didn't say that in the letter, but I guess I know, not a lot of people might not know that he was my husband, but I didn't mention it. But so Vincent Gallivan, my husband, died 14 years ago, and so this monument was erected and built 13 years ago, and there is a fund. So I have now requested the Selectmen to accept this fund as a gift and the monument, hopefully to be placed somewhere, I would hope or expect, in around a new town hall. So I'm not behind this at all. I now have this fund because of time going on. Originally, there was a committee. I had nothing to do with this. I was in my morning, and some friends of his and the JCs, a large group of JCs came and just, you know how you just need to express yourself. They needed to do something. And Vin was been involved in many different things, and they had all different kinds of ideas, and they found a letter that he had met someone that had suggested this project of finding who this town is named after and erecting something so people could read and know somewhere, because you say, oh, it's named after a fox. No. So anyway, he had written a letter and offered to chair the committee. We found the letter after my husband had died. He must have written it, you know, a month or a few weeks before that, written it to the JCs saying, I will take this on and be chairman of this project. So we said, oh, sort of like a little brainstorm, why don't we just take this on? In fact, it didn't seem like something he would take on, but he had already written this letter and he was going to, you know, do something special for the town. So we ended up erecting this monument, and there was a plan to have it on the town common, but that all fell apart. There were some real problems, and the committee actually fell apart then too. We raised $30,000 or more to be used for this town, and because of all that went on, we have not been able to use that, so it's been sitting in a non-profit fund in a local bank. I think it should be moved, and I would like to perhaps set up an independent fund here. It would be, you know, a dedicated fund. Mr. Scollins assures me that there have been many such funds that they've worked with. I don't mean for it to be any trouble for the town or extra expense, and hopefully it can be expended soon. It can be diminished. It's not an endowment that is going to be there forever. It's to be used. At the moment, I think it needs to be saved because there's so many potential things can happen here, and we just don't know. The monument, I hope you've stopped to read it and looked at what is on that monument on all sides, and it would be, I think, appropriate in a lot of spaces, hopefully prominently, that it's, you know, you actually can see it and read it somewhere. And so there's plenty of funds here to move it temporarily if it needs to be moved because something's going to be done with this town hall. It can be moved permanently, and there's money for it to be moved permanently. There's money for landscaping around that monument, and I believe there's going to be money left over to do other things with it. My thought would be if there is a town hall, whether it's in the back, in the front, or someplace else, use it for beautifying the town hall grounds and use it up. Now, I ask that, I believe that the town could be the best judge of how it could be used in a project such as that. I would ask, though, that myself or someone in my family be like, somehow it could be written in that we would be there as some kind of an advisor. We would like to know what the thoughts are, that, you know, someone could list the type of things like we could help work on how much these things would cost and see if it looks like a good plan. I don't expect to have veto power or, you know, say we don't like this kind of tree or anything, you know, but just in general to be comfortable with something that's appropriate. I mean, I guess I would object if it was going to be stuck up somewhere around a corner of a building that you couldn't ever see it, you know, and no one ever got to benefit from what it says on it and so forth. So I guess I would have that very high expectation that it would have some kind of a fairly prominent place. And I don't think there's anything on that monument that isn't something beautifully done and would reflect nicely on the town. So that's what my hope is. And as I say, if we could try to set up some
escrow
fund, well, it wouldn't even be, it's an actual fund that would be invested in the town's name instead of, right now it's under the Vincent Gallivan Memorial Fund Trust or something like that, okay?
I haven't spoken to Randy, but if you have some thoughts on the mechanisms of that.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Joan, if it pleases the board to accept this gift, then my suggestion, Joan, is that we have it conveyed to the town in the form of a bequest, a gift and a bequest. And as you know, being an attorney, you can put whatever condition on that bequest you, as the giftor, that you deem appropriate. And I think it's a simple enough matter, and this is pretty common, that a giftor in a gift like this has a provision in there that says that a member of the family, and you've got to designate who that would be available to consult with the town and would need to approve the location or language to that effect. I certainly agree with Joan that it's a beautiful monument, and it has its, should have its place in a prominent position in town. It's dedicated to the, I'm going to blow it, is he a count, or what was he? This,
Vincent Gallivan?
yes.
He was on the planning board and just.
No.
Oh, he's talking about Mr. Fox.
The Fox,
Charles James Fox was a parliamentarian
parliamentarian,
in England.
who has a special connection to the town, for whom
Well,
the
he
town is.
espoused the values, and I think the legislature, Jack Oslet, would have it more beautifully put together, but I think that at the time in the legislature, when we were looking for a name, that the name of Charles Fox had come up, and they looked for, Foxborough and so forth, prominent people, some of them in this country, but this happened to be someone that was making a lot of noise over in England about freedom and liberty and so forth. So they said, great name. So that's why Foxborough was named Foxborough. It was just the timing at that
And
time.
apparently it's spelled B-O-R-O-U-G-H as opposed to the more common O-R-O, because a couple hundred years ago we couldn't behave very well, and I hope that's a tradition that we continue for a few more hundred years. But it's a beautiful monument, and I would certainly recommend to the board that it be accepted and proudly placed in a location when we hopefully do get approval for a new town hall. I think it would grace the grounds very nicely. And with a gift this generous, I don't see there'd be any trouble moving it, bringing it back to the appropriate place and incorporating it into the design and all that, if that's what the board would like to have happen.
Okay. So, does anyone want to make a motion?
Do we need to have something more formally written up as,
Yeah.
with a check and, drawn up by an attorney
It's right.
before we accept the motion?
Joan can do that.
And, well, Joan, you can do it, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you want to have somebody else do it because it's involving yourself, and I know there's a couple in this room right now. So I think it'd be proper if she drew up certain, conditions on it, and then be checked by her attorney, and then brought back in front of the board with the presentation of the check. Would you want him to control the future Board of Selectmen and a family member, or are you going to put it in charge of you're going to put it in somebody's hands? I mean,
I'm going to do your selectmen with your town manager.
yeah,
Now,
well,
I'm
exactly.
hoping, I do want this to be a permanent thing, though. I don't want another Board of Selectmen changing their mind, as
Well,
we've
no, it'd
already
be-
had
Yeah,
issues
absolutely.
here. So, I mean, this would be something formally accepted. The town would have it then, yes.
Yes, sir.
Could you might just want to accept it pending an approval of any kind of written document
Okay.
for the town. I think that, I don't think that that's any, serious thing that you need to read over for the, in other words, it would be pending. You definitely would have your say if you want to hold everything up, but I'm just saying,
Yep.
I would think for now, unless you had
I
some
think
more
my
questions.
preference is to not let the opportunity pass. We'll vote on it tonight with general conditions. And I certainly can make the motion if someone else doesn't want to make a motion.
I can do
Sounds like a good idea.
Motion to accept the Charles James Fox Memorial Monument and Charitable Fund from Joan Galvin and the Galvin family in memory of your husband, with conditions approved after review.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any more discussion? All
Would
those
there
in
need to
favor?
Would there need to be an amount on that motion? Typically, as a gift or a fund, there's an amount mentioned.
The amount is,
It's within the documents,
is
yeah.
between $24,000 and $25,000 right now.
Actually, the gift is the monument itself
With,
and the fund, and if the board approves, Then I'll have town council draw up the bequest, I'll have them talk to Joan, make sure we get the conditions right, and then bring that back for the board to sign as an action item, probably in a few weeks.
I'm sure town council would love to have this be something he'd be generously putting his time towards.
Well, you're
Let's not take away from
I
the
like the way you think, though.
So motion made, seconded, no more discussion. All those in favor? Aye. For the record, 5-0. And Joan, just on behalf of the board, thank you. It's a tribute to Vin. It's a tribute to the people that worked on it, the JCs at the time, and I'm sure it'll find a very special place.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Joan.
Thank you very much, too. Feels good to have it taken care of. And good luck in all your plans, too.
Thank you for waiting, so we'll continue with the transfer of license.
Okay. Okay, gentlemen, thank you again for coming. If you could state your names to the record.
My name is James Nocera,
And you represent?
and I represent Jake and Joe's.
Okay.
My name is Gerard Fugero, and I am manager on record for Jake and Joe's Sports Grill of Foxborough.
Okay, and
Good evening. Members of the board, my name is John Mitchellmore, 33 North Grove Street in Foxborough. I'm an attorney representing the applicants here. As you know, this application is for the transfer of the existing license and an application to pledge, if the license is granted, the liquor license. The license is being transferred from Piccadilly Disposition LLC. We have included a copy of the court order in the package, which authorizes Piccadilly Disposition LLC to complete that action. Mr. Donahue from Fletcher, Tilton, and Whipple in Worcester is here. He represents the landlord, and he also is in charge of getting that court order. So if there are any questions that you may have for him, he'd be happy to answer them. The applicant is, the transfer is Grand Slam Restaurant Concepts LLC, which is a Massachusetts limited liability company with the usual place of business at 195 School Street in Waltham. And the license requested is an annual all-alcoholic restaurant license. The manager of the limited liability company is Mr. Nocera, has introduced himself already, and the proposed manager of record will be Jerry Fugero. The location of the premises is 25 Foxborough Boulevard, which is the site of the former Piccadilly Pub. The licensed premises is a one-story restaurant space with approximately 6,800 square feet. There is also a full basement of approximately the same size. There's one main entrance and exit, and there are two other emergency exits. The space has a permitted occupancy of 260 people and a seating capacity in the bar and restaurant of 200. The premises will be leased from the same present landlord, which is JHK Enterprises LLC of West Boylston, and a copy of that lease is on file with the application. The license will be pledged to Citizens Bank, and a copy of the draft of that pledge agreement is also on file with the license application. The proposed manager is Jerry Fugero of Waltham. He has extensive experience in restaurant management. From 1999 to 2003, he was the operations manager for the Naked Fish restaurants, and since 2003 to the present, he has been the director of operations for the Chateau Restaurant Corporation, and in 2009, he added a responsibility of being the chief operation officer of Grand Slam Restaurant Concepts LLC. He is presently the manager of record of the Jake and Joe's in Norwood, and if approved, he would immediately become the manager here on a full-time basis. The plan would be that he would be doing that, get the restaurant up and running, operational, and at some point when it was appropriate, a general manager would be hired to take over And I've reminded him that that's something that we have to do, is when you change the manager, to make sure that all that paperwork is done properly. That is, in fact, in process in Norwood. They haven't yet the final decision, but he is, a new manager has been named, and the process is going through with the Norwood Board of Selectmen. He's been certified by ServSafe in alcohol serving and the customer identification regulations and procedure, and I think we've also filed that notice that he with the package. There is presently one other Jake and Joe's in Norwood. It opened in 2010. I don't know if you know where it is. It's on the southbound side, just before you get to the Neponset Street Rotary. It's where the old Ground Round was.
It's the old Ground Round. I was going to ask that.
The Ground Round was demolished, and the new Jake and Joe's put up. This is what it looks like now. That was not a renovation. That was a complete an independent build. Although the Jake and Joe's is styled and characterized as a sports grill, their experience in Norwood has been that they do a great deal of business with families, and they have a family and kid-friendly menu, and that is also, as many of you know, is a strong tradition with the Chateau restaurants, to having it be a family-oriented restaurant, and that's what they intended to be. There will obviously be big screen televisions and the things that sports people like, but basically it's going to have grill items as opposed to the Italian menu that they have at the Chateaus, and there will be again, it will be kid friendly. This is just a quick rendering of what they are intending to do for the signage and the presentation. This is an existing front, which is going to remain the same. The proposed interior is going to be considerably opened up with different seating areas. I think that those of you who remember the Piccadilly was dark. There were a lot of walls. Those are going to be eliminated. It's going to be bright and hopefully bright and cheery, and be a successful operation. So if the board has any questions for either Mr. Donahue, Mr. Nocera, Mr. Frugero, we'd be happy to try to answer those.
Would you move on to that? Would you like to describe yourself and the restaurant also, or did John handle it fine for you?
First of all, I have menus here if you're not familiar with Jake and Joe's. If
Here
you'd
we
like to
go.
look at them.
I'm glad this is earlier, because usually it's late and we're all pretty hungry, so.
All right. Well, I run the Chateau restaurants also, and I'm familiar with the Chateaus, but it's a family-based restaurant. We decided to, my brother and I decided to open this restaurant, and we always were, our family was into sports. There's 6 boys in a family, and we were really interested in sports, so we always wanted to try a sports grill. So we had the opportunity across the street from the Chateau in Norwood to give this one a try because it was available, and it's done very well. We enjoy it. It has its all different times of the day, has different types of clientele, from business and during the day to families for dinner to a late night crowd that enjoys too. So it's really a food friendly. We're 60% food, 40% liquor. We're not a liquor place. We are a food place first, and liquor comes second. And we have a really good. It's really worked out well. We've been there over 2 years, and we enjoy being there. All right.
Jerry?
I think another interesting aspect of the restaurant is if, say on a Friday, you go in there at 4 o'clock, you'll see maybe, the clientele between the age of 50 to 65, 70 years old. And an hour later, about the same time, we get the parents with the four-year-old kids, 5-year-old kids coming in, and and as the night progresses, we get a little bit of a younger crowd, and it's it's basically it fits a lot of different personalities in the industry, and it's particularly different than a pub or a tavern. Where a pub and a tavern, people, more or less, it's a people sit there, drink beer, and that's all they do. we're again, a restaurant first, and, you know, with a sports bar concept. So that's what our intent is. And, you know, as far as the renovations, you know, we plan on doing a lot of good things to the property, and it was just too short of a time really to have a full detail of what the architect's going to do. We have a nice architect who more or less designed a ground round into what you see in the bottom there, and you know, so that's just kind of a little rendition of what we're going to do of what's showing on the left.
Do you expect to have a job fair anytime soon?
Once we you know, get into a timeline, you know, that generally 4 weeks before our anticipated training starts, we you know, do a on-site hiring where, you know, we may have a trailer that we set up to do interviewing and hiring, and we expect to hire probably 65 local people from the local community to work for us is what our intent is.
Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think, unless there's questions, I don't think.
Okay, anything from the board to ask these gentlemen?
Just that I had lunch today at the Norwood establishment. It was very good, and I think it'll be a nice asset to the, nice addition to the town.
Thank you very much.
So it was the food was good, the staff was very nice, and I was thinking, I hope they bring the menus, and you did, so welcome.
We didn't bring a bag of food, though.
No, we didn't do that.
Right?
I just want to say, I think it's great that we could get a tenant in so quickly to that spot, and wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Sure you'll do very well.
Linda?
So you're not thinking of having like a patio and drinks outside or anything like the one on Route 1, or?
Yes, we were considering
Well,
doing
thinking
some
that.
type of patio, but that's not enough. Maybe it might be a year later, we might ask for that.
Okay.
But yes, we would consider doing something outside, right off of the lounge area. You know, we do that at Jake and Joe's. It's like tonight will be, they'll really enjoy it out there
Yeah,
tonight.
it's a nice
It's
night
a nice
for it.
touch when you have a nice weather. You know, we'd like to be able to do that
So, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's not often that I can give you firsthand experience with an applicant, but I can with this one. I can tell you, having eaten in your Norton restaurant just last night, and over the years, my family has been in the Nocera family's restaurants in various locations many, many, many times. And I can tell you that the Nocera family name is extremely well known, extremely highly regarded. Every one of their restaurants is impeccably operated. They're all successful. And I took the time to reach out to 2 communities today and ask about any police issues associated with the liquor license, and they were spotlessly clean. And that reflects both what I was told as well as my personal observation and having been in their restaurants, like I say, dozens and dozens of times. So I think the board will find that this is a very, very welcome restaurant in town, and the Nocera family, and you, sir, as well, didn't mean to slight you, will be great corporate partners for the community. So this is a real win, I think, for Foxborough.
If you don't mind, I thank you very much. If you don't mind, one of the most important things that my family is proud of, and that is really working with the community with fundraisers and things that go on that we can help out. And all the chateaus and Jake and Joe's, that's part of what we do. We want to be part of the community. We enjoy it.
Appreciate that. This is a public hearing. Does anybody from the public have anything they want to say? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Move that we close the hearing.
Second?
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Hold on, Linda, excuse me. Jerry, you have something?
I was in favor.
Oh, you were in favor. Okay, and anything else from the board?
I move that we approve the transfer of the all-alcohol restaurant license from Piccadilly to Grand Slam Restaurant Concepts at 25 Foxborough Boulevard. Manager Gerard Ruggiero. I'm not Italian, so Ruggiero.
Transfer and pledge?
What? Excuse me. I'm sorry. Maybe I should have.
There was a pledge in there also. I'm just suggesting that you add the word pledge to it.
Pledge of.
the license to Citizens Bank they had mentioned.
Oh, okay.
John, do we need that in the
Do
motion?
we need that?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
part of the application.
Ah,
Okay.
Okay, so
All right,
amended to include the pledge.
okay.
Second?
I'm just not sure the microphone's picking that up,
Yeah.
Linda.
The motion is the transfer of all alcohol restaurant license from Piccadilly to Grand Slam Restaurant Concepts, Jake and Joe's at 25 Foxborough Boulevard. Manager Gerard Frugiro, as well as the pledge, as outlined in our packet. Unless you want to amend it
Second.
to something.
All those in favor? Aye. Welcome to town.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have to do the victualler's license, and we have to do the application?
Okay. Entertain a motion?
Right?
Sure. Motion to approve the application for common victualler's license for Jake and Joe's.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye, 4-0 again. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, John.
One of the next item too, I think that we have some information on.
On the ABC
Yeah.
license?
Yeah, that's just an information item for the board and also to alert you, in
Would
case
you
you
like to
weren't
do
aware,
something?
We are,
that there's
I
a,
want to discuss, Mr. Donahue has the information on it, if you want to get information.
yeah, I don't think we couldn't tell from the notice exactly what that was, so I think the board might be interested in hearing what that hearing
Apparently, they
is.
did not pay, or they're in violation of their obligations under the lottery license. There was money owed to the lottery, but they're working very closely with the Department of Revenue, the ABCC, to get all of those payments that are owed to the Commonwealth, various entities paid, and that's all going to be done as part of this process.
And would you be kind enough, once those things are settled, just to let the board know by letter? Great, thank you.
Yeah, that's all the state, that comes back, the ABCC is gonna kick it, so it doesn't matter
Just
with
in
us.
case, Mark, it gets settled before the hearing, which is, I'm presuming, what you're going to do.
Let you know as soon as we find out.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck.
James, when you're ready.
Nice job, thank you. The next item, if Police Chief O'Leary, and is Bill Caspara here
I saw
in the
him.
back? Do you want to come up to the table? And again, for the record, I'm going to recuse myself from these discussions because I do live in the area of North Street. So if Mark wanted to take over the meeting.
Getting a workout tonight.
Get rid of my rookie status.
Getting a workout tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Chief O'Leary, Bill Casbaro, we're here to talk about the parking bylaw discussion, which I believe takes place is this Thursday. It's been accepted by the state, by the AG.
This Thursday will be the second posting in the reporter, and that'll fulfill the requirements of MGL 40, Section 32. Yes, it goes into effect on Thursday.
And we're under recording since Pauline's not here. And just for the, I'm sure the board sends all their thoughts and prayers to Pauline. Hope you feel better. We'd like to see you again shortly. And so Bill Casbaro just spoke, and Chief O'Leary is here, Foxborough Police Chief, because it can't be taken for granted because it's a recording, so we don't, so, okay. Who wants to start?
We were requested to appear before the board.
And your chairman, well, you want to explain to us what's going on now? Explain it to the public. Edward, that'd be great.
If I could start, Edward O'Leary, 37 Ridge Road, Foxborough. The purpose of the bylaw was to reduce traffic congestion during times of major stadium events. Over the past several years, there's been a substantial growth of traffic flow created and still created that involves a public safety hazard, especially at the end of the night. This increased traffic flow and parking as a result of the numerous paid parking operations that have developed as a side industry along North Street and from North Street had migrated to other areas of the town adjacent to Route 1. The Attorney General has made a ruling that the bylaw as constructed is constitutional, is an enforceable bylaw. However, to my interpretation of the ruling from the Attorney General's office, not only does it allow the bylaw, but also delineates the parking of cars for pay as the specific violation. Because I believe that this operation has created the additional cars in the area that creates the hazard. At this point, the department will monitor parking operations and issue civil citations when violations of the paid parking element occurs. This will be done as in the past by just normal police procedures. There seems to be some mistaken issue within the community that parking tickets would be issued to individual cars parked in a person's yard. That is not the case. The bylaw pertains specifically to people who park cars, and in particular for pay.
Would those cars be removed from the property, or would they just, you ticket the owner later? Just trying to get some clarification.
The owner would be ticketed where each car parked for pay would be subject to a $100 fine.
All right, Linda, any questions?
No, I just want to hear from the public when they're ready.
Right. No. I know it's caused a great deal of controversy in town, and a lot of people have attended the meetings. There's some citizens here that, like Nancy, you'll be able to speak in a minute. I'll give you my view on it, and this is the way I look at it. And this was a discussion I had with a mother, another mother in town. She was aggressively in favor of letting people park cars on the property. On it's their property, they should be able to do whatever they want to do. And I said, well, let me give you this scenario. And this is always my take on it. You've got 3 or 4 children. It's a late Sunday game or it's a Monday night game, and those children have to go to school the next day. People are coming back at 12, 1 o'clock, and later in the morning. They're going right next door. It's a warm day, or you have no AC. The windows are open. We all know what a disruption it is. And it's, in my eyes, it's going to be loud. It's going to be offensive. And I've been there. I've seen what happens. And I just don't think it's fair to property owners that abut certain situations that they should have to deal with this. Never mind, it's one of those things in town that's also put neighbor against neighbor again, which always happens once a year. There's always a similar situation where it divides the town or a certain part of town. I really don't think people should have the right to park cars there. I really don't. And I will never vote, as I sit here on the member of the Board of Selectmen, to allow these little private parking lots. Now that's all been taken care of by the AG anyways. I think it's unfair to you to put your neighbors through that, and I just don't think it's a thing that you really want. It's a liability condition, which I've stated in the past. If your insurance company ever found out about it, that you were charging to park cars on your property, you could be subject to a whole lot of other situations that would really be detrimental to possibly your insurance or your mortgage or whatever. So that's the way I see it. And if none of the other board members want to make a statement, I'll open it up to the citizens. Okay, does anybody feel, Nancy, you have the mic. Just once again, we're on a recorder, so if you could.
Try to speak up.
Well, that and state it, because, it's very difficult. You can sit at the table if you're more comfortable.
Well, if this works, I'll sit here. I'm all set here, I think. Okay. All right, so I'm Nancy Kempany, and I live at Messenger Avenue. To give you a little background on what happened here, as you know, at town meeting, this bylaw was passed. It was a close vote. It was at the end of the day. At the end of the meeting, there weren't that many people remaining. And there was some discussion at that time of what the enforcement policy was going to be. there was, but it was clear at the meeting that we were voting on the bylaw, not on the enforcement policy. So in order to address concerns of the community, the chief called a meeting. It was held at the Ahern. That was June 4th. And at that meeting, the chief and Bill Casbara initiated the formation of a committee. Now, this committee was not formed by the local people in the stadium area, but they are the people who signed up for it. We got a letter on July 2nd from Bill Casbara, and it stated that the goal of the committee was to establish criteria for parking of vehicles on residential property during stadium events. So, and when people showed up at this, it was a good mix. For example, you know, there were some people who maybe have parked for pay in the past, but there are people like me who never have and never will park for pay in the past, but being in the area, we're concerned about the parking. So it's not as though this was a committee with an axe to grind, and certainly I have no, horse in the race with respect to pay parking. After what we did at that meeting was we identified the objective of the parking bylaw, which we felt was to increase public safety by reducing traffic on the street on event days, and to address public safety issues. We wrote a letter to the chief because he did not stay for the substance of the meeting. We had a second meeting of the committee on July 25th, and again, we hadn't heard from the chief, and the chief did not attend that meeting. So on July 27th, we requested that this matter be placed on the agenda for the August 7th meeting. I believe it was placed on, and then I think Mr. Pecos removed it from the agenda and instead suggested that there be a meeting and invited me to the meeting with the chief and Mr. Casbara. So when we came to the meeting, when I came to the meeting, what the gist of the meeting was I'm not sure whether or not Mr. Pecos ever had the report that this committee had prepared. But the gist of it was he indicated that the Board of Selectmen does not have the power to, although they have the power to issue regulations, they did not have jurisdiction over the enforcement of this particular bylaw. And that he felt that any proposed enforcement procedure that included saying a certain number of vehicles would be permissible and a certain wouldn't be, would be arbitrary and capricious and unenforceable. And that may be true. In addition, on that day, they indicated that on that day...
1 second, Nancy.
Oh.
Yes.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay. Now, they indicated that on that day, the bylaw had been approved by the AG's office, but suggested that they hadn't seen it yet. We maybe looked briefly at the report of the committee, and I want to give you a copy of the report of the committee so you can see what the committee came up with, okay?
I need one for the record. Okay.
Now, I think you guys already have it. I've only got one more left, and I got it.
That's okay. Keep it. Mark, we'll use this one.
No,
for
I
us.
have one more,
Okay,
but I
I'll
don't
put
have
that
one
right.
for the chief and Bill Casbara.
No, I have one, thank you.
Okay, so if you went through it, you'd see that the suggestion of the committee was that obvious or flagrant infractions of the bylaw where people are clearly taking payment, they would be infractions. But we had, other additional suggestions such as establishing no drop-off areas, restricting parking on in the Hallowell Street area and the Mackenzie Street areas, maybe establishing non-resident parking, no non-resident parking areas in those places. So if people, because we're off the beaten path, both in the Hallowell area and in the Whispering Pines area, so that people who are actually in the community could perhaps park on the street even though others couldn't. And we talked about a placard system, but after the committee came up with this plan, the AG issued her decision. And her decision in some ways changes what the things were listed here, because we include in here a suggestion that there could be a presumption that if a certain number of cars were parked on a lot, that might be a violation. However, in the AG's decision, she writes, subsection A of Article 24, that is to say, this parking bylaw, regulates parking, quote, for a fee, end quote. We understand the town will adopt policies to implement subsection A of the bylaw such that it is applied only to parking for a fee and not to other non-commercial parking of vehicles. When I read this language of this decision, it is clear to me that the AG's intent was that if I don't ask people to pay to park on my property, I'm entitled to have as many people as I can fit park on the property. That's what this protects. It also, contrary to what we discussed at that meeting, this requires that a policy be established. And that is completely the purview of the Board of Selectmen. That's not a function of the police department, and that is not a function of the town manager pursuant to Chapter 5 of the Acts of 2004. The Board of Selectmen is the chief policy-making agency of the town. The town manager merely implements the policies. So I'd say we're back in some ways to square one, because you as a board have to sit down and develop a policy and vote to adopt it. And I seriously question whether this can go into effect until you have done just that. Okay? Now when we're going to talk, now this, because my committee didn't meet, I'm going to tell you how I feel. And this is the way I feel about it. That when you sit down and you make your policy, I think it has to be clear that ticketing can only be for documented pay-for-parking offenses. Parking as many people as you want is not a violation based on the AG's opinion. Enforcement should have to have evidence in order for the violation to garner a ticket. It was suggested at one point that, gee, if we were ticketed and we had a reasonable excuse, oh, we're having a family function or whatever, that then we could just go down and fight it. Let me tell you, I don't think that, that just is unrealistic to expect people to take off from work or whatever in order to fight a ticket that they should never have been given in the first place. This needs to be treated just like other bylaws and violations of other laws. If you think somebody's speeding, you don't stand on the sidewalk and say, gee, they were going pretty fast, let me go give them a ticket. You've got to have something to substantiate it, whether it's a radar reading, clocking them as you're going by. Same thing with any other offense. Now, it may be that having a certain number of cars parked might give reasonable cause to further investigate. But unless there's some tangible evidence that somebody is actually accepting pay for parking, you cannot enforce paragraph A of the bylaw. Now, we discussed the fact that that can be done in some ways by setting up a person in a plainclothesman in a plainclothes car, see if they're, if they go to a place that even doesn't have a sign up, okay, that's a violation. Of course, if you have a sign up, that's a violation. If you have a kid waving on the street, come in, and a sign, clearly you're in violation. But if you don't have that, you can't just assume that just because there are 10 cars there, that people are accepting money. If you wanted to make it a violation of a bylaw, that having more than a certain number of cars parked on a residential lot was a violation, that's the way the bylaw should have been written, and it wasn't. And if that's what you want, and I can understand, Mark, that's what you think is an issue, bring that back before town meeting with those kind of words in it and see if it passes. And if it does, fine, then you can enforce that. But until that's the bylaw that's passed, that's not the bylaw you can put into effect. There shouldn't, in my mind, there should not be any requirement, and we should make this part of the policy, that we have to register with the police for family events or other matters. It's just a violation of our right of privacy to have to run down there and give you guys the registration number of the people who are going to be at our house. I don't want a public record of who's been at my house when. Why should I have to give that? I mean, I don't have anything to be ashamed about, but I don't like to have information that's personal, trackable. Okay? And I shouldn't have to do that just to use my property for what I want to use it for. And in addition, I have kids, a lot of people have kids. Kids do not plan events. So my kids might decide on a day that there's a Patriot game, let's have some friends over. And then suddenly, we're going to have people coming. I'm not going to know in advance. And why shouldn't I? A bylaw that said that I can only have X number of cars at my house because I live near the stadium means I can't have a party for when there's a Patriots game, but somebody living down on West Street can? That makes no sense. And I think that's what the AG's office, I think that's what the AG.
Doesn't say that. No, let her finish.
Right,
She's an attorney.
But if you say
She's an attorney.
You enforce this bylaw by saying we're gonna presume that anybody who has more than X number of cars, or if you think there are X number of cars there, then that is what you're saying. Now, the other thing that I think that you should do with the policy is with respect to the second paragraph. I do not think it's right to back for what you want to get for your no pay for parking bylaw by using the second paragraph in that says no person shall cause to be parked, blah, 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 any vehicle which contributes to traffic congestion, preventing or impeding progress, blah, 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 or creating a general nuisance. Now, I think one way I want you to look at this is when people go park at on Craft Group property for the football game, that is a legal use of the property, right? It is. And based on what the AG said, if I have 10 people parked at my property, that is a legal use of the property. You cannot give me a ticket for creating traffic and not give the Patriots a ticket, because we are doing the same thing. We are each using our property for what we are allowed to use it for. So, and they are using it 200 times more than anybody else. So before you start giving tickets to people when you can't prove that they're taking money, then start giving tickets to the Patriots, because everybody who is parking cars can be subject to the same thing. I mean, that's not saying, to me, that's not saying you can't go in and say, all right, people are recklessly going out in the street and you're stopping traffic to park cars on your property. Okay, that's a different public safety issue. But merely having a certain number of cars parked at your property should not constitute a violation under paragraph B. Okay? And that's...
Is that it, Nancy? You have more?
That's all.
As always, you're always well-spoken and always intrigued to hear what you have to say. Does anybody from the board want to comment before I ask Chief O'Leary to comment? Seeing none. Ed, would you like to comment on any of that?
I think I was very clear with my introduction from my reading of the bylaw and the Attorney General's decision. It clearly points out the bylaw delineates parking cars for pay is the violation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it's trying to prove that pay, because we all know you can, we've talked about it in 3 prior meetings, I believe. One was at the school in the borough school where I brought up the placard thing. And I also brought up the fact that somebody can mail a check to the residents for the entire season for whatever so-and-so amount for 10 games, and there's no proof that they did that. I mean, you have to be subpoenaing bank accounts. But it's a very difficult thing to do. And I do see a strong point with Nancy, and I will ask the board later in the future to have another meeting to discuss these points, because she is right. We can put the policies in effect. And does anybody disagree with that? Okay. Bill, do you have anything to add?
Sure. Let's call a spade a spade. Last night, I my personal car with sunglasses on and a hat. I look like a movie star. I drove down North Street and was waved in by 11 homeowners. 11. Was I your friend? I don't think so. On Friday, I'm going to be there because you're the ones that are charging. You're the ones that are going to get the ticket. That's it.
And now he knows the addresses. So anybody else in the audience have something to say on this matter? Microphone, sir.
John Sloan at 4 McCaslin Way. If we're going to do this to stop people from parking in their yards, are we going to do anything to tighten up the security so people don't park on the side streets? We have people parking on both sides of our street and the car can barely get down.
Edward?
I have spoken to Mr. Hill from the Highway Department. One of the items that came up in the letter you received tonight deals with the issue of Whispering Pines Estate, that for whatever reason, no signs were ever put there about no parking during stadium events. We actually had the last 2 events having an officer act as a checkpoint at the entry point into that neighborhood as best as possible without restricting people from going to visit friends or neighbors. But the highway superintendent intends to post that area with no parking signs. Parking in a restricted area during a stadium event is a $100 fine and the potential of having the vehicle towed.
Okay, sir.
Actually, our street was at one time posted, but during a snowstorm it got knocked over and removed.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience? Okay, seeing none. Oh, sorry, ma'am.
Margaret Chase on North Street. I would like you to explain exactly how the ticketing process and any appeal process would work.
I think that'd be up to the courts. The appeal process.
Non-criminal civil offense, so how does that work?
If a person receives a ticket, it's a civil offense. It can be paid, I believe, right here at the town clerk's office. If you wish to appeal it, it can be appealed to the clerk's office at the Rentham District Court. If you fail to pay and fail to appeal, then a criminal court summons could be issued for that person.
All right, well, I just want to reiterate what Nancy Campany said about the proof of offenses and things like that, because I feel that there's a lot of room for abuse in this and questionable issuing of citations.
Well, as most things, it'll be improved as the day goes on. I think they, is there anybody else? George?
George Lennon, 3 Aldrich Road. I just want to comment to one thing which you did mention. This bylaw is for the entire town. It does not break down, specify, or indicate anything to do with the Patriots' place, Gillette Stadium, or anything like that, other than, which I don't understand this, they put a 15,000 attendance in there. But it applies to the whole town, not any specific.
Anybody else? I would ask the board, we'd like to put this on discussion at a later date, Kevin, to see if we can talk about a policy set by the board. Now that the AG has approved the bylaw, I think Nancy's 100% correct, that we need to make a policy of the Board of Selectmen and notify, as we usually do, the Board of Selectmen meetings as an agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I had an opportunity to discuss this with Town Council yesterday in anticipation of the discussion tonight. First of all, the board is absolutely not compelled. You're not required to adopt anything. This is a bylaw. It doesn't need any further regulation unless for some reason you see some requirement to do so. Your ability to further regulate is a little bit fuzzy. There is a statute that gives you authority gives towns the authority to issue bylaws regulating parking, and that authority in the bylaw itself gives the board the authority to further regulate that bylaw. And so you have, right now, a general bylaw, which is what went to town meeting and got amended, and you have parking regulations further regulating commercial parking. Now, I don't know how you would regulate something which has been declared unlawful. In other words, you regulate commercial parking because you have a bylaw and a statute that lets you regulate it, but now the town has declared that you will not have non-commercial parking in any area of the town, including North Street. So now that you have this nullity, I don't know how you regulate that. I mean, what would a regulation even say?
Maybe,
So we were having trouble trying to figure out what would a regulation say. Moreover, you have the practical problem with respect to enforcement. The board has no authority, neither do I, to tell the enforcing authority, the police department or the building inspector, how to enforce any more than you can tell them how to write a speeding ticket or how to arrest a burglar or how to stop an armed robbery. We have no authority to do that. We are specifically prohibited from regulating criminal law in Massachusetts. That's the chief's business and the building inspector's business. So and this is what I tried to communicate that night we had the meeting, I don't know what it is you could do, and what I'm concerned about is the board trying to do something that I've had no indication from the board you have an interest in doing, and something that I'm not sure you can do. So we're really in a bit of a legal conundrum here in terms of what is it that anybody wants to do.
well, I think, one, I think you make a good point. I think Dick Ellerman should be brought in to explain the bylaw to us more clearly and what teeth we have into this. I understand the frustrations of the, everybody that's been involved with this from the starting point. And, it's unfortunate we have to get to this point, but it's a quality of life issue for a lot of people. And, it's just, if we have to get a little further into it so people feel they've been heard. I think Nancy makes some great points. I think she's got some, issues in the bylaw. I think she could be fairly accurate with, and we can have that debate with Dick. Set up a half hour, have another conversation. Does the board agree, or I'll leave it to the board? I mean, I think it's something we should do, especially for the citizens and for educating ourselves more about the bylaw. Unfortunately, I was not allowed. I could not attend town meeting that night because of a family emergency. So I wasn't there for the debate. I wasn't there for anything. And obviously, we don't record town meetings, so I could not revisit it. So, but I would be interested in moving forward with having Dick Ellerman here and having another half-hour discussion in the future, just to, explain things to everybody, clarify the bylaw, and to us and the people. And if there's another situation where we have to, I've always said I was in favor of placards. I understand Nancy doesn't want to have to go there every time, but Nancy, the police know who's parking here. They know when it's a family event. They know when it's not. When they see people walking back and forth, I mean, and you know what? We don't have the manpower to even support this right now. It's getting a little ridiculous. But I think the board should hear it out one more time.
So, Mark, are you saying not to permit enforcement
Oh,
to
no,
begin
the bylaw is in effect. They can do enforcement as of right now as far as that's their jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction, I think Nancy is correct. We need to put more teeth into this where we have to create a, what's the word?
Got me.
Policy.
Is the policies related to enforcement? That's what you...
This is the AG's opinion. If you want to see the part that I circled, which says the town shall adopt policies.
So I just think we'll have it. I'll let Kevin, and we'll discuss when and where later. Obviously,
well, the board hasn't. I think you've asked a question. I haven't heard what you want yet.
I got one nod from Lorraine. Anybody else interested, or are you all done with this issue?
You're talking about having Dick come in?
Dick come in and explain the bylaw.
Policy? Don't we already have a policy?
No.
On parking?
What you have, think policy regulation, same thing, okay? Because there is no difference. You have a regulation.
Right.
You have a 3-page regulation which was just thoroughly gone over, rewritten, series of meetings with the business community, and it was brought back to the board, readopted earlier this year.
Right.
You regulate commercial parking lots. You used to have, in the bylaw, the ability for people in town to have 10 cars paid on a paying basis.
There was no bylaw or nothing. That was just, okay, we'll let you do this.
No. There was a bylaw that said you could have, yes, that's what we just amended at town meeting. That's what we just changed.
Edward?
Yes.
Clarification, we've never had a bylaw on any parking in this town ever.
I'm sorry.
You're mistaken.
You had a provision in the regulation that allowed that you could have 10 cars paid.
No, you could park up to 10 cars, had nothing to do with payment, had nothing to do with
But
nothing.
somebody, that was authorized somehow.
It was a gentleman's agreement between
was
the
just flip the
citizens
other
of
way and ignore
Foxborough and
the
the
zoning.
town, is all it was. There was,
Right, it was.
that's it.
Back in 1973.
Mr. Casbarry will explain it to us.
The Selectmen's licensing agreements, license specifies that the parking of more than 10 cars shall require a license from the board.
Thank you.
So that was the licensing agreement.
Right. That's the regulation.
So we used that number, 10, to say, okay, you're parking up to 10, you don't need that license, you live close to the activity on a weekend, have a go at it. Well, that's what it was. And it worked for a few years. And then a couple of years ago, it was getting a little out of control, and you probably remember we brought it to the board to change that licensing agreement to 0. Any parking of any cars requires a license, but at that point, the residents said, we'll police ourselves, we'll be good citizens, we'll take care of things properly. We see where that went. So that's why.
So what you had was, either in the bylaw or the regulation, a provision that said that you were not going to regulate, with your regulation, any place that accepted up to 10 cars for payment, okay?
And
that was changed at town meeting by specifically in the bylaw prohibiting that activity. So what's changed now is you used to allow people to accept up to 10 cars for a fee. The bylaw has now prohibited. Since the bylaw has prohibited this activity, unless someone can articulate how do you regulate a nullity? How do you regulate, you can't do this anymore, but we're going to regulate it? I don't even know what it is we'd be doing.
Let's ask this question then. No disrespect, Kevin. I'd rather hear an opinion from legal counsel than anybody in this room, not just yourself.
Fine.
So if you want to have Dick review the bylaw very quickly, I'm sure he's already looked at it, and say, can the Board of Selectmen create a policy on this? And have them contact us, or yourself, and you can report us, or do we have them come in here? I want to be able to make sure that I'm not just wasting Edward O'Leary's time and Bill Casbarry's time writing out tickets and then have our building commissioner end up in court every time again and having it thrown out. That's all I'm trying to do, is protect the interests of our town employees at this point in time. But if
I did take the liberty of asking town council yesterday at the request of the building inspector and the chief to provide an opinion on the one question, which was our ability to issue a ticket on private property. Now, the bylaw doesn't specify in that degree of detail, so we want to be sure that we're in good ground there. But the bylaw does clearly say that parking cars and accepting money is not lawful. That's very clear. So it's a small clarification, and Dick's researching that, and he'll get back to us. But that's the only question I put in front of Dick, because it seemed it was the only question that the enforcing authorities were asking for, and it was the only question we could think of that would need to be answered. But if the board has additional questions, I'm sure Dick would be happy to answer them. Forgive me, but I don't know what I'm asking him, so I think the best thing is for him to come here and have you ask him.
Basically, I asked if Dick could come here, clarify the bylaw to the board, exactly what teeth the board has to set a policy in. If the board...
we have to set a
Well,
policy.
that's what I want to, Nancy, you don't view the regulations as the policy?
Nancy, you're going to have to go to the mic, please, if we're going to have a debate on the floor.
I think if you read through the AG's decision, you will see that she reviewed the bylaws that the town has. She acknowledges that there is currently a commercial bylaw. Nevertheless, she includes a paragraph saying that the town must adopt policies to be sure that this new portion of the bylaw is not used to... You've got the language there.
Other non-commercial parking of vehicles.
Right.
Right.
I see that.
So she clearly intends for the board, the town, to adopt policies. And it's clear to me in the underline, the chapter 4 of 2000, whatever it is, chapter 5 of 2004, that it is the selectmen that is the chief policy-making entity for the town. And I'm not quite sure that that if we go through this, we're going to find that regulations and policies are equal.
Just a question, if I might.
Policies can be general, and regulations can be developed from them.
Before we go any further, I'm going to ask the board one more time. Is this something the board wants to do? I'm just going to can it.
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah,
All right,
I think
so,
we should have
all
Dick
right.
come in and ask questions.
So I'm going to end the discussion now.
Dick, who understands our policies,
Okay.
our procedures, our bylaws, the whole kit and caboodle,
So
right?
the
Why
board,
not?
the flavor is to bring
Yeah.
Dick Elman here.
Yes.
So instead of having this debate on and on again to start it all over another date, could you please invite Dick Elman to come here to meet with the board in the future, within the next month, and put a half hour aside to discuss this matter again?
The board understands that in the interim, the bylaw is in effect.
That's
and they are-
fine.
and they
What
are
happens
going
in
to
the
enf-
interim happens,
'Cause I
hey,
don't
you know,
want the
then we'll
public
have
to
we'll have a good idea who the offenders are right out of the gate.
I don't want the public, because the worst thing that could happen tonight is for the public to have a misimpression that enforcement is not going to happen until this discussion, whenever it happens.
agree, 100%.
You can't
They
reverse
are
something
going to
that town
enforce it.
meeting has already voted on.
We
You know,
agree.
everybody knows that.
Once town meeting votes, they're obligated to.
Exactly. That's true.
All right, to that
By the
end,
way, could I just ask, because I can't find it, and I apologize, where is that section that the AG said shall? Because I find
Yeah,
where it
I'll tell you
says, we
Right here.
understand. Yeah, that's what I said. Just for the record, it doesn't say shall adopt the policy. It says she understands the town will, because someone told her that. It wasn't the chief, it wasn't Bill, it wasn't me, so we don't know where that came from, but it does not say shall adopt the policy anywhere in this letter.
hold on. Back to the mic.
But when she...
That may be?
It may be, but when she prepared the opinion, it was based on that knowledge that the town will establish policies.
And who gave her that knowledge?
Otherwise, it would not be in her opinion.
Yeah, I'll argue with you, Nancy, that...
Maybe then you should
that
ask
wa-
the AG for clarification as to whether or not the town has to adopt the policies that she assumes will be adopted in her opinion.
Oh, sure, we'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Bill, anything else?
No, not at this point, no.
Okay. All right. That said, all right, 5-minute recess, and we'll return with Jim DeVellis as the chairman. Thank you.
We're back. Thank you, Frank. We have a couple items left after this 5-minute recess. The next item, this is a discussion on the license conditions for Christina's. This was added to the agenda late on Friday. I guess there was a scurry of emails or discussions on a potential issue where the new owner of the license for Christina's we were speculating that they wouldn't honor the conditions that the selectmen put on there. I think there was a bunch of discussions. I'm not sure if there's a topic to discuss tonight, so I'm going to ask Kevin what the update is from town council and your discussions.
Actually, special counsel, Mr. Chairman.
Special counsel, correct.
There was a little bit of confusion about the board's condition from last week. There is no more confusion. The board's vote, the condition on the transfer of the license was that Mr. Panagopoulos, as the new owner, would honor all deposits for persons who wish to go forward with their engagement, be that a wedding or whatever the function is. Through Mr. Panagopoulos' attorney, we have been assured he understands that condition and intends to comply with it. If someone decides not to go forward with their function and they ask Mr. Panagopoulos for a refund of their deposit, that is not the subject of the board's vote, and that is a private matter between that party, Mr. Panagopoulos, whoever else is involved, and it does not concern the town of Foxborough. But with respect to your condition, he understands it and intends to fully comply. There wasn't, as it turned out, a need for this discussion tonight, but at the time this was put on, there was a request. Board members were expressing concern. I know some of you are getting emails and phone calls, so we put it on, and then basically over the weekend I was able to get it worked out.
Discrepancy in what I made the motion. My motion was to honor all deposits to the date of the day we transferred the license. It didn't say it ongoing in my motion or not ongoing. I mean,
so I think the
difference,
the gray
here,
area is if someone made a deposit for X amount of dollars and then decided not to have the event there, do they get that money back? Is
there was no gray condition in my motion. My motion was to honor all deposits known to date of the date of the transfer of the license. That was the motion I made. And it had nothing to do with what we just, unfortunately, Kevin, there's confusion here in what I said and what you just stated. There's nothing.
Well, from Special Counsel Lou Cassis, he understood the board's motion to mean that if somebody wanted to go forward with their function, that their deposit would be ordered. If what the board meant was that somebody gives a deposit, they don't go forward, and you expect Mr. Panagopoulos to refund it, you have exceeded your authority under the statute. You can't order that.
Right.
And you will likely be the subject of legal action. So my suggestion to the board is what you meant was exactly what Special Counsel interpreted, which is if a function is going to go forward, that the new holder of the license has to honor that deposit and recognize it in the cost of the remaining cost of the wedding. But if somebody decides they are not going forward with their function, the disposition of the proceeds that they may have deposited is private business, has nothing to do with this licensing authority.
Right.
If you want to do differently, then I think you're going to need to I wouldn't be qualified to advise you on that. You'd need to bring special counsel here to advise you.
More discussion from the board?
You know, I raised the question after reading that email from the individual, and because my interpretation of the motion was the same as what you've just described, Lou Cassis has reported. So, you know, I feel comfortable that that is the that's the interpretation as perceived, and that is the extent of our authority, because when I saw that, I never envisioned that we would be placing the new license holder in a position of having to give money back. I viewed it entirely that they would be absorbing some costs. Unfortunately, they'll be absorbing some costs because of lost deposits. So, but still had the opportunity to work with the event to recoup, you know, to make something. So I'm comfortable with the interpretation from Lou. That's what I thought I was voting on.
Well, it's discrepancy. I mean, there's interpretation, as you can say, I mean, to honor all deposits known to date can mean multiple things here, I guess. So,
Right, I mean, Lou was here that night, so
well, that's,
I'm taking, Lou's, word for it. But, I mean, if you meant something different, then maybe we have to revisit it. But personally, first of all, we all got that email. The next thing, emails are going back and forth, which I hate, which I know we can't do that. But my interpretation would have been that's something that the business takes care of when you sign your agreement with somebody and they say, hey, you're not going to get your deposit back if you back out for whatever reason. If it's a hurricane, if it's a, whatever, you don't get your money back. So I don't know what their terms and conditions were, but I think that's between their party. I think that we were just saying that he would give a discount because that sheet that he had said, that he had presented to us said discount on it. Discount of 20, $1,500, whatever they had put down. Mr. P decided that he would honor that, but I don't know,
right.
And I knew that, we could discuss it, but I just don't think that we have any, as Kevin mentioned, I don't think we have
well,
any
he's
rights.
obviously probably very correct on that, but just for clarification, I told that gentleman who we called me on the phone to CC the whole board. We can have all the emails and interaction we want, we just can't deliberate and make decisions by email, basically, it all comes down to. I just don't want to be the only person with that information, says, listen, when you send this email to me, you send it to everybody on the board. Everybody's name is on the website and their email address. Okay, that said, that's exactly why I've had multiple phone calls from people on this, and I didn't return the phone calls. I figured if there was going to be a discussion on it, it should be in this office, not between me and everybody having phone calls. That's how you get manipulated and put in an awkward position. So, and if you call me on a subject like this and say, I'd like a few minutes with you to explain my side, this is the forum for that, not me on my cell phone. And if you're going to email me that same, discussion, it's going to be CC'd immediately to the rest of the board members, so everybody has the same, information. But I can understand the motion, the way I made it, to honor all deposits known to date, meaning what Lou says and what everybody interpreted. It's about, law is about interpretation, so if that's the way it's interpreted, that's the way it's interpreted. It wasn't the actual intent of my motion, but not like it can change it now, and I don't think we're going to revisit this and have a huge discussion on something that we have no jurisdiction on.
Okay.
So,
Any more discussion on this topic before we move on? Once again, the goals and objectives. Kevin had handed out a revised spreadsheet.
is this the last revision of the revision of the revision?
Actually, it didn't end up getting, the board, you approved at the last meeting two things. As you recall, I had sent these out to you on a Sunday night, and unfortunately, I think there was some confusion because not everybody copied them and brought them to the meeting, the last meeting. So at the last meeting, we had agreed we would put this on for tonight for a vote. I would, in the interim, if I got any comments from department heads, integrate those into a new copy. As it happens, department heads didn't have any input. They said, looks fine to them. If this is what the board wants, that's fine. There is only one question, and that is on number 21, goal 21. I don't really understand what this means. So if you can tell me what it means so I can somehow figure out some details to put down, then I'd be happy to do it. If we can't, then my suggestion is just to delete it, because I don't know what it means.
Succession planning?
It seems to say that if a application for an event at the stadium comes to the office and it's incomplete, that we won't accept it. And we do that routinely, and that does happen with some frequency. There's minor omissions, we send it back. Once in a great while, we'll have, something significant omitted, and we send it back. We don't accept it. Now, so if that's what you're saying, then we don't need a goal to say that. That's just a matter of course. That's business as usual.
I think this item was, Ginny, you brought this up
Yeah.
and I remember there was a couple emails regarding an event
Yeah.
that was emailed to the board on a Friday, and that's what triggered this.
Yeah, I just thought, got the feeling that things were being rushed, and actually, a couple of the people who were on the Stadium Advisory Committee, because I had forwarded it to them, they actually thanked me for making this comment, because they felt at times that information was given to them at the last minute, put a rush on it, we've got to take care of this. So they agreed with me. So it wasn't just me who felt that things were being rushed, and that there should be, like a timeline, that people should have a chance to review the applications and then, think about it and ask questions. And that was.
The board may not be, I think I have an answer to why that happens, and you may not be aware of this because you're not in here on a day-to-day basis, but we very frequently get applications from the stadium for events that have already been advertised publicly.
Well, yeah.
So what I will tell you is I don't have any ability, when that application comes in, I can't say, gee, you filed this, but you already advertised and you're selling tickets, I'm not going to accept this. Or I have no power to do that. Only you do. You are the licensing authority. My only power is an administrative function to take it, look at it, make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and pass it along to you. And the same time you get it, Stadium Advisory Committee gets it. So if it's filed late, or if it's filed untimely, or it's filed with a very short period of time in which to react to it, that is on the end of the stadium in terms of when they do it. The minute it hits here, it's put into process. We don't delay for a second. So I don't know how you regulate that, except unless you want to bring them in here and have a discussion. But the cautionary note is, boards have been allowing this for a long time. And so if you suddenly change this, then you really, in fairness, need to let them know that this is going to be a new, you're not, you might want to say to them, don't you dare advertise anything until we approve it. Now, you can't really do that, because if they want to take the risk of advertising it before you approve it, that's on them. But maybe, I understand now what you're saying, but I don't think it's an enforceable thing. I don't think it's anything we can do.
Well, as part of the application process, can't we say, well, once you've decided that, before it's advertised, once you've decided that, okay, we're going to have this event, just let us know. Start the process at that point. Because, it's very disconcerting when you all of a sudden see something advertised that you haven't even approved.
Or been notified about.
Well.
Or been notified. Because, other things, other people, other entities are also planning events. And what happens if, like, all of a sudden you have two or three major events, all of a sudden decide to go on the same date?
Or say the Lafayette House is having a wedding and nobody can get there because of the concert.
Exactly right. And all I'm asking for is just in a timeline, and the timeline can begin. Timeline shouldn't begin when they're applying. The timeline should begin when they have a pretty good idea they're gonna have this event. That starts the timeline.
They already know that. We're not to bring them in and tell them that
That's
would be stating the obvious. Here's what you have the authority to do, and boards haven't done it. Plain and simple, you haven't done it. When you get an application for an event and they've already sold tickets and they've already advertised it, and you just approve it and you don't say anything to them, like, wait a minute.
Well, I did.
Well, this board has not. This board is the licensing authority, not any one of you individually. So when they come in here and you know that tickets have already been sold, posters have gone out, TV ads are going on, and you just say, okay, event approved, you miss the opportunity to say to them, wait a minute, we didn't approve this yet. You started selling tickets a month ago. Right. Well, guess what? That's their business risk. You can tell them all day long, we want you to notify us when you book an event, and they can choose to do it or not, and I'm going to guess that there's good business reasons why they don't notify you right away. So, I think I'm not sure you can solve this problem. Except you exercise your authority as a licensing
The thing
folks.
here is whether or not this should be on goals and objectives, not whether or not it should be
I
a
don't want this on
discussion.
my plate because I can't fix this for you. I have absolutely no authority, and I don't want to be held responsible the next time they walk in here with an application and they already sold tickets, and you're asking me, why did you allow that? It's like, are you kidding me? I don't allow that. I don't control that.
Basically.
Well, is it, when you're talking about goals and objectives, isn't the...
Linda's had her hand
This
way
is-
up
No,
for a
no,
while.
no, Mark just,
This
Mark,
is your goal.
Mark already said it.
This
Mark
is
already
your
said it.
goal that you gave me, that you were going to hold me accountable for next year. What I'm telling you is,
That's
I'm
what
not
we
going to
should
be
be
held
discussing
accountable
right
for
now.
that, folks.
Okay.
I
Is
can't
whether this should be
possibly
on his
control
goals and
that,
objectives.
and
That's
I'm
all
hoping you're
that we should
seeing
be
this.
discussing right now
You
is
can't make
that.
me
But
responsible for that.
it's a board issue, and you're right, it has gone on for a while.
The decades.
My concern's probably a strong word, but when we get an email on Friday saying, we're trying to get an extra thing, we're doing a boxing match, if you have any problems, let us know. You've got new members, and a lot of us aren't privy to what the steps are. If it's a courtesy email, and a lot of times they'll say, we're trying to get an extra event, and they'll send it out to the police chief, let us know if there's any issues or concerns, we'll be coming in front of you. So they do try to give heads up. And I think
Sometimes they do, yeah.
it's that area in the middle. A perfect example is they set the NFL schedule way ahead of time. It's all locked up. It comes to us at the 11th hour because that's the way it is. Are we offended that the NFL's advertised it and we haven't voted on it yet? That's not going to happen. So we're stuck in the middle on a few things.
But
We
I
want them
think
to get
maybe
more
we
events.
could have that discussion at some point, and, when they come in for the next, whatever they're gonna be here for. But I think that the only question we should be answering right now under this agenda item is this something that should be on Kevin's goals and objectives? Because that's the item we're discussing right now.
Right.
So do we remove number 21?
Right.
Basically,
I
yes.
say yes.
And that makes it clearer, and I think if we put this on
To move
for
it to what?
No, move it
us.
off.
And
as
then
goals
ju-
and
it's
objectives.
back
as
to
our-
us.
To
as
us,
our
okay,
Back to
fine.
us as
No,
an
just-
agenda item.
There,
come
remember,
back.
Okay,
Jeannie,
just as long as it's
there's
addressed.
6 or 7 or 8, I think, Lorraine's keeping track of them, that were
Yeah.
taken off here and
Yeah.
are more appropriate to the board, and then I'll assist whatever you'd like. But they're not really my goals, and I think Lorraine is still tracking on those, and she's gonna, when you're done with this, she's gonna produce another
provide
list,
that
which is the
separate
things you
list.
wanna
Right.
do.
Okay.
And if I may, Ms. Sharon, I think the way we get this resolved is to invite them in here, not wait for the next one, just have them come in, because there's good reasons they do what they do. And I'm not going to say they don't make a mistake once in a while. If you have as many events as they have, you're going to make a mistake, but that's an honest mistake. By and large, I give them credit. They're very good, they're very communicative, and they do a good job most of the time. I think there's some very good business reasons, and I'm not going to say them publicly, but I think, just think about it. You book Bruce Springsteen, he's going to have a concert, and you know on this date in May that you've booked him, and you don't want the public to know that until sometime later. Well, guess what? If they tell us, the public knows. So there's
I
good
think,
reasons.
Kevin, probably more relevant is if they book something, they've got to grab it. For them to wait for the next agenda 2 weeks later or
You
4
lose
weeks
it.
later, and then advertise, you've got 2 or 3 weeks of time that you've lost for advertising to fill the seats, so.
Sure.
Once again, we're
So
off subject.
I think if they come in and they chat with you about it, you can probably come to some agreements and understandings of what you'd like, and they might be able to do better for you, and they can
So-
explain why they do what they do, and it might make some sense.
So now just to summarize, we've got 20 items that are on Kevin's, as a town manager's, goals and objectives. We're well into the goals and objective season, because this has been being kicked around for a while. We had talked about your monthly reports, kind of stopping.
Well then,
Oh, God, somebody's got good ears. These are not mine.
So I think the discussion was to get the monthly report. It's a little onerous because it takes you a day or two full time to get that out. And if you don't do it, you go on the website, and then I think the last one was January or February, so it looks like you're not, fulfilling what you need to do. We were going to talk about summarizing these within your monthly statement,
Yeah,
which could be quarterly.
All I'm going to do, if it's okay with the board, I'm going to add a field to the right of this, which is status report. And then every month, I'll give you a status report on all these. What I'll also do, because these tend to change over the course of the year, something we thought we were going to do now, come January is not working or whatever. So as I've done last year, I'll amend the steps, not the goal itself, but I'll amend the steps, but I'll highlight it so you can see something else is going on, and I'll put it in the comment section. And then you'll get these every month, within a couple of days of the beginning of the month on the previous month. That sound okay?
Makes sense.
Yep. And just so we can track them, put the month at the top.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You can
Yep.
see it, and then it's of record. Now, these have already been vetted through, you said you didn't get any feedback from the department heads.
Well,
but
I got
for you to
some,
get
but
these achieved, they have to be buying into this.
Yes, it wasn't feedback in the nature that would have resulted in changes to the document itself.
Any more discussion on the goals and objectives?
Just requires a vote, if you please, and then we'll attach this to the minutes. You did not take that vote at the last meeting because we were still waiting for input from the department heads.
Motion to approve goals and objectives for fiscal year 2013 for Kevin.
Motion made, seconded.
Ginny? Who seconded it? Just as a recorder.
Nobody seconded it yet.
Sorry.
Second.
Motion made by Lorraine, seconded by Ginny. I'd just like to add under discussion items, because this is part of Kevin's contract. This is what we're going to be reviewing him on. This is what we're going to be reviewing his salary on. Put a date on it. There's no date on this, so we can reference it. This is the one that was handed out today. Take off the item number 21, put a date on it, and
Yep.
then if you could email that to all the board members, so we have that for the record. And could you put that in your permanent file, so that's part of your record?
Yep.
So motion made, seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So 5-0, and for the record, motion was made by Lorraine and seconded by Ginny.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a comment before we go into executive session. Being that it's not legally accepted that a recording device be used in executive session, has to be handwritten notes for the minutes to be written. I'd advise the board that we don't have this executive session. This is not a legal device accepted for executive session. We're supposed to have a
Note taker?
note taker, a stenographer, or somebody involved. I just don't feel comfortable proceeding in this matter right now with it.
No, we've had that in the past in.
I've never.
No, we've had the recording, or we've had executive session not attended by a note taker, and I think Kevin took the meeting minutes. I don't know the law on that, so I don't know if, Kevin, do you know the law on having a tape recorder or a stand-in?
There's no requirement in the law that you have a note taker, a physical human being take notes. There is a requirement you produce minutes, but the law doesn't say anything about who has to do it. I've done probably 25% of your executive session minutes. I've written them because whatever reason, it was late, we didn't want to keep Pauline or whatever, and so, or it was going to be very brief, so I've done the minutes. I agree with Mark. I don't think we should record it. I think that's town council would strongly advise against recording an executive session. But I'll be happy to do the minutes. I've done that many, many times.
So these meeting minutes are the regular minutes from the recorder. They're going to be translated over to written meeting minutes that we approve.
These get sent, as soon as we identify someone who can do it, these get sent to somebody who then listens to it or watches it on cable and then produces minutes for you.
Okay. Are you okay with that if it's not recorded and Kevin's the note taker?
I still think an independent party, nothing personal, Kevin, at all, other than a board member or the town manager, should be taking the minutes and then being approved by the board. I just strongly urge the board not to go forward with the executive session tonight. I might not attend it if you do.
More discussion with the board?
Is it anything timely? I mean, do you see?
There's two items. One is extremely timely, the other is not. I've got a, well, I can say this in public because it's not, you're going to be working on parameters for one of the bargaining sessions, and I have a bargaining session set up prior to your next meeting, which I would have to cancel in order, if you were to not have this meeting tonight. That's one issue. I don't regard that as a huge disaster. It's an inconvenience, and it'll slow down negotiations, but it's not a disaster. I am concerned, however, looking at your schedule in the weeks to come, the things we've already got, it is stacking up badly, and you've already put 2 more things on your agenda, and I'm really concerned for you that we're going to have some Herculean meetings, or you're going to have to start meeting weekly because you can't get it all done.
If we would have to add an extra meeting, I'd be way more comfortable with doing that than having to deal with an AG and some kind of other complaint or something else that we've all had to deal with in recent weeks, pretty much. Because somebody's just got a beef with everybody on this board all of a sudden with certain things, so.
So it sounds like one board member has a concern. There's nothing critical. It just may give us a little backlog. But other than that, are you guys okay for not extending?
Could you meet next Tuesday night and do just executive session? Because that would take care of the problem on my end with the bargaining session.
Or
Wait,
we could,
let me check.
but we
think it
still
would-
need independent minute
Yeah.
taker. It's,
See if you can get
That
Diane
would be
for
August
that.
28th.
Can you see if you can get Diane for that, Kev?
Let me just look. That would be the 28th. And I don't bargain again. Until the 12th. So if you did it the night of the 11th, I got to bargain the next morning. I wouldn't have any time to do what I need to do to get prepared. But if you do it next Tuesday, then I've got a week, so I'm okay. If you can meet next Tuesday, then that would take the
All right,
time
can you
crunch
see if you
off.
can get Diane to come in?
What's that?
Can you see if you can get Diane to come in to take minutes?
I'll try to get somebody. I can't promise because, believe it or not, it's harder to find somebody to do this than it is to find a DPW director or an HR director or a police chief. This is wickedly hard to find somebody
folks
for.
out there, we're looking for a secretary that can take notes for us on a, every other Tuesday.
And AdCom as well, potentially.
And possibly AdCom, if there's folks out there that's looking for work.
shorthand capabilities.
All the qualifications. I don't have to do shorthand or any of that stuff
Yep.
because the tapes are back up and there's a videotape.
Right.
So all we need is somebody who's pretty good at writing skills and can be a stay-at-home person. They just need to attend the meeting and take the minutes. And it's great working conditions. It's a very friendly crowd. So it's a really nice job.
Good climate control.
Anyone out there? Anyone?
And I'm asking this because I don't know, but where we're talking executive session and contracts and confidential stuff, do they have to be sworn in or certified or something in that?
No, they just can't be a member of any of our bargaining unit members or a family member of any of them because they'd be in conflict, obviously.
And report to the Board of Selectmen's office?
We don't have the advertisement out yet. We're required by charter to advertise it. So as soon as we get the ad out, we can screen folks. But if there's somebody out there who's interested, send in a letter of interest with a resume right away. Don't wait for the ad.
Right.
Okay.
We've got to get the ad out as a procedural
We
thing.
didn't have our PR person here tonight, so.
Right. Yeah, those interviews are starting next week.
Okay. Okay, on that was the last item. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, seconded by Linda. All those in favor?
Aye.
So 5-0.
I lost. Did you say okay to next week?
Yes.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
just-
Same time, same bat channel? Or
We're just gonna, you know.
Evan, did you want to start a
Thank you,
little
Frank,
early?
at Foxborough Cable.